Does anybody else remember when paying extra for TV sounded ridiculous? In the early 70s, almost everyone watched free broadcast networks like ABC, NBC, and CBS. And that seemed like more than enough. So, when a group of cable pioneers announced a paid service showing uncut movies and live sports, most people reacted with the same kind of energy you'd give a toddler trying to sell you dirt. Why would I pay for this when it's already free? But on November 8th of 1972, a small experiment launched in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. A few hundred subscribers tuned into a New York Rangers hockey game on a channel called Home Box Office. Nobody knew it yet, but that broadcast would eventually lead to Tony Soprano, Carrie Bradshaw, Oz's brutal cell blocks, and a complete redefinition of what television could be. HBO didn't just change what we were watching. It changed how television was made, who controlled it, and what audiences demanded from it. It proved that people were willing to pay for TV not because it was TV, but because it was better. It wasn't supposed to work. But it didn't just work, it changed the entire TV game. The satellite move that changed everything. Those early years for HBO, they were rough. They were really rough. Dolan's Manhattan cable system struggled financially. Subscribers canceled because, let's be honest, watching the same 5 movies on repeat gets old pretty fast. In 1973, Time Inc. bought out Dolan's stake and Gerald Levin took the reins. HBO needed something big or it was headed for the scrap heap. Then came September 30th of 1975, the day HBO would become the first TV network to broadcast via satellite. They beamed the Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier Thrilla in Manila boxing match live to cable systems across the entire country. Not only was this a cool technical achievement, but this was the moment HBO went from regional curiosity to national player. Before satellite, HBO was limited by landlines and microwave transmitters. After satellite, though, the whole country was suddenly in play. The results were immediate and they were spectacular as well. HBO's subscriber count exploded from a measly 40,000 before the satellite launch to tens of thousands more practically overnight. Cable systems from Florida to California started signing on. By 1977, HBO had over 1 million subscribers and finally turned its first profit 5 years after launch. Gerald Levin's gamble on satellite technology, quote, proved what a difference that could make. It freed HBO from geographic limitations and basically invented modern cable TV networking as we now know it. Not bad for a channel people thought was going to fail. The 80s. Growing pains and big moves. The 1980s saw HBO transform from novelty act to cable powerhouse, though it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. HBO entered the decade with around 4 million subscribers and then rapidly grew to over 10 million by late 1982. They were crushing rivals like Showtime, however, success always breeds competition. To bolster their position, HBO expanded aggressively. In 1980, they launched Cinemax as a sister network. Cinemax would focus on a broad mix of films and eventually gained a late-night reputation as Skinemax for its risque content because, hey, cable freedom meant adult freedom. HBO itself went 24-hour by 1981, moving beyond its initial evening-only programming. Throughout the 80s, HBO's subscriber-funded model gave it a massive advantage. They didn't need to rely on advertising, which meant they could completely ignore Nielsen ratings. This might not sound too important, but let's talk about that for a second. While network executives were busy having panic attacks over every tenth of a ratings point, HBO was busy focusing entirely on customer satisfaction. They didn't need to chase mass audiences for advertisement money. They just needed to keep their subscribers happy enough to keep paying. HBO would go on to secure lucrative output deals with Hollywood studios, guaranteeing a pipeline of hit movies. But they also started dipping their toes into original programming. In 1983, HBO premiered The Terry Fox Story, the first made-for-cable original movie from any pay TV channel. That same year in '83, they invested in Jim Henson's Fraggle Rock, proving cable could create some quality kids programming as well. Original comedy specials also became a huge draw. HBO's On Location series featured uncensored sets from comedy legends like George Carlin and Robin Williams, which essentially created the modern stand-up comedy specials as we know them today. Then came shows like the satirical Not Necessarily the News, the horror anthology Tales from the Crypt, and the racy sitcom titled Dream On. HBO's willingness to push boundaries occasionally sparked controversy. In 1986, a rogue satellite operator calling himself Captain Midnight hijacked HBO's signal and inserted a message protesting HBO's fees. The prank was resolved pretty quickly, but it symbolized the Wild West nature of early satellite TV and prompted HBO to encrypt its signal going forward. By 1987, HBO had about 15 million subscribers nationwide, and as the decade was closing, one thing became crystal clear. The future lay in developing signature programming that could not be found anywhere else. The 90s, the decade everything changed. This was the moment when HBO stopped being just a movie channel and became a game changer. In the early 1990s, HBO's leadership recognized that in order to retain subscribers long-term, they needed unique programming that viewers just simply couldn't get on other broadcast networks. The company would go on to adopt a guiding philosophy. Don't copy what others do, find something new, different, and distinctive. In 1996, HBO introduced its now famous slogan, "It's not TV, it's HBO." According to industry commentary, an early concept for the campaign featured a montage of uncensored stand-up, graphic scenes, and edgy documentaries. One of the ad agency executives reportedly muttered, "Whatever that is, it's not television." Whether legend or fact, the remark captured the internal mindset of the company. By the mid-1990s, under CEO Jeff Bewkes and programming chief Chris Albrecht, HBO made a strategic pivot. Invest heavily in original episodic series. They believed prestige programming would strengthen the brand, and they were right. The Sopranos courted writers and producers David Chase from The Sopranos, Tom Fontana from Oz, Darren Star from Sex and the City, all who were frustrated by broadcast TV constraints. On HBO, there were no commercial breaks, there were looser content rules, and there was plenty of freedom to tell serialized stories. That creative freedom started to pay off quick. HBO would greenlight projects other networks wouldn't even consider touching, and by the end of the decade, the medium itself was changing. In short, HBO didn't just adapt to the decade, they actually helped define this decade. The game changers. Let's now talk about the shows that defined HBO's 90s revolution. First up, The Larry Sanders Show, which ran from 1992 to 1998. This biting, behind-the-scenes comedy created by and starring Gary Shandling was set in a fictional late-night talk show. This show would break sitcom conventions by shooting without a laugh track and tackling Hollywood egos with razor-sharp wit. The series became an Emmy-nominated critical darling, paving the way for later meta-comedies. HBO gave Shandling near total freedom, and TV Guide later ranked it among the greatest comedies of all time. Then, in 1997, HBO premiered Oz, its first one-hour dramatic series. Created by Tom Fontana, this gritty prison drama pulled absolutely no punches. The show had graphic violence, nudity, and explorations of race and sexuality that no other broadcast network would even consider touching. As one cast member recalled, back in 1997, who had HBO? Given the content of the show, we thought, are these people crazy? No one's gonna watch this. In 1998, Sex and the City premiered, introducing viewers to Carrie, Samantha, Charlotte, and Miranda. This stylish comedy drama became a pop culture phenomenon practically overnight. Created by Darren Star and based on Candace Bushnell's writings, the show offered an unapologetically candid portrayal of female sexuality, friendship, and modern urban life. And then came January 1999, the month television changed forever. A show titled The Sopranos premiered, and TV has since literally never been the same. This show is still talked about and revered today. Created by David Chase, this drama about New Jersey mob boss Tony Soprano juggling his violent criminal life and suburban family while seeing a psychiatrist was unlike anything on television before. Here's a quick synopsis of the backstory. Chase and producer Brad Gray had pitched their crime drama to several networks. Fox said no. CBS said no. Every major broadcaster passed on this pitch because who wanted a show about a murderous, foul-mouthed gangster seeing a therapist? Well, HBO did. Not only that, they told Chase to lean harder into the mobster in therapy angle. They encouraged him even to shoot on location in New Jersey for authenticity despite the higher filming costs. To say that they trusted Chase's vision is a bit of an understatement. The Sopranos quickly became HBO's crown jewel. It earned massive critical acclaim, with the New York Times likening it to a great American novel on screen. The Sopranos was the first cable series ever to win the Emmy Award for Outstanding Drama Series, beating out other big network shows. Critics now frequently cite The Sopranos as the best television series in history, and many credit it with inaugurating the era of prestige television that led to Mad Men and Breaking Bad. From HBO's perspective, The Sopranos perfectly validated their original programming strategy. It drove subscriber growth and brand prestige far more than any blockbuster movie could have. By the end of 1999, HBO had a hit that network executives openly envied. The HBO philosophy: quality over quantity. Behind all of these hits was an organizational philosophy that set HBO apart from all other television. Executives like Chris Albrecht often said HBO was not chasing ratings. They measured their success in subscriber loyalty and cultural buzz. Because HBO didn't sell ads, a series could reach only a few million viewers yet still be deemed a large triumph if it pleased the subscribers and garnered acclaim. This was fundamentally different from broadcast TV's Nielsen ratings-driven type model. HBO's team actively sought out projects with distinctive voices and often greenlit controversial or niche subjects that other networks avoided. For example, in the early 90s, HBO Films produced a drama titled And the Band Played On, which was about the AIDS crisis that NBC had developed but later shelved and then labeled as too controversial. HBO picked it up precisely because it had a strong point of view. The film even attracted major stars that were willing to work at half pay for the cause, and when it aired in 1993, it was hailed as a milestone for television's engagement with social issues. Creators who worked with HBO speak of it in almost reverent terms. David Chase has noted that HBO was the place that let me do it when every network rejected The Sopranos. Tom Fantana of Oz said HBO's early faith gave him confidence to push forward with a show so violent and dark he wasn't sure that anyone would watch. Gary Shandling credited HBO for letting us make the show we wanted to make without any network meddling. And this is likely because HBO executives all believed that their job was to listen to the storyteller, not the crowd, and trusting the vision of their creatives over things like focus group data. This was diametrically opposed to how traditional TV operated, and creators found it both refreshing and very empowering. Final thoughts. From 365 subscribers watching a hockey game in 1972 to creating some of the most acclaimed television ever made by the late 90s or period, HBO's journey is one of the great success stories in entertainment history. They proved that counter-programming works, that people will pay for quality, that creative freedom produces better art than committee-driven focus groups. HBO showed the world that viewers craved television shows just as good as award-winning movies, and that these viewers were willing to hand over their hard-earned cash to get them. The network became such a household name that hotels eventually started advertising it on their marquees as a selling point for their rooms. And here's my question to you. What's your favorite HBO show from the 1990s? Was it The Sopranos that changed how you thought about television? Did Sex and the City spark conversations you'd never had before? Or were you one of those people sneaking late-night viewings of shows you probably shouldn't have been watching? Share your HBO memories with all of us. Let us know in the comments below. If you loved this deep dive into HBO's rise, make sure to press that like button. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you don't miss out on our next trip down TV memory lane. Thank you for watching. While the golden age of HBO might have peaked, the impact of what they built in those early decades still shapes everything that we see on television today. HBO wasn't TV. It never was. It was a television revolution.